sure that it's a project that's got enough meat on the bones and it's got experience, and that we're not overexposing a risk. All we're doing here is looking at a potential borrower and the property and just trying to say, how can we make this make sense for them, right? Really, that's what it comes down to.
Do you find that when you have made this connection that the borrower or the investor that we're going to be working with will buy multiple properties, or it's just like a one-hit wonder?
No, many times they buy multiple properties.
So once you guys have secured a contact, then it's not going to be, a one in and out. It's going to be more of a relationship. So you continue, to be able to work with these investors. Is that correct?
Greg, you want to talk about
Yeah, I was just saying, I was giving him it in because he just experienced it.
Very relationship-oriented business. For example, from 3 contacts, 2 being brokers themselves, 1 being a developer, about $8 million of the business has come from those people.
Wow.
The developer themselves runs and carries over 30 projects at a time. Probably there's 10 to 15 turnarounds on an annual basis. The one broker himself is actually a developer. So this is not counting another maybe $1 million worth of business he's holding still back until we do this first tranche of business. And the other broker who's doing the same set 3 portfolios. So in one client, whether it be a developer or whether it be another broker or whether it be a person that's out there sniffing and finding, can bring you multiple streams of business if you establish the relationship. And a lot of that's based on your ability to articulate to them that you understand the business and that you're able to deliver in a timely manner, and they'll be more than happy to keep feeding you because as they feed you, they're feeding themselves.
Right. Give me my paper back. You're an expert.
So going back to what I've been talking about since the beginning is the 4 things that we're looking for, why the borrowers need us. And it's credit, income, the property, and time. So now you looked at a summary of what a project looks like from A to B to B to C, right? That may take a total of 6 months to complete the project, but sometimes you have to pull the trigger really fast and buy the asset within a couple of days. If the bank all of a sudden approves a short sale that you've been working on for months and they expect you to close in a week, you cannot go to Bank of America and ask them to close. So that's nobody, no large lender, in fact, no conventional or FHA lender is going to close in less than 30, 45 days. And 30 days is assuming everything's perfect. So that's why they need us. Now, and the point I was trying to make when I explained the A to B to B to C is, so remember, you made $30,000 in this particular scenario, right? $30,000, and now you used our leverage when you came in with $60,000 because we gave you a loan for $80,000, you came in with the down payment plus the rehab cost, right? So you're in $60,000, total out, you are $30,000, right? But what if now we are presenting you this scenario and you say, well, I'm paying that additional 6% to you guys. That's too much money. But it is really too much money because the time of money has a cost, right? The ability of not losing this opportunity also has a cost. If you're really looking at it from a cycle perspective, now it is really costing you 1% per month on your loan. So let's say it's $80,000 that you're borrowing from us in this particular scenario. So you're paying 1% a month. It's really nothing compared to what you're making at the end of the day. So would you want to risk the opportunity or lose that opportunity versus just actually getting it done? And that's the mentality that all these developers have.
So you're telling me if I wire you $60,000 or I put out $60,000 and I pay $800 a month, I'm gonna make back $30,000.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah. And if you understand really what I'm trying to have everybody understand, in fact, Candy, the first day she came, we did this exact same exercise because we want everybody to understand the big picture.
You make me look bad. Ask another thing.
We spent 3 days on this.
It has to marinate.
I feel like,
They're getting it all the first time.
Yeah, what's up, Candy?
That's okay.
Wow. No, but really, we want everybody to understand the big picture of what the project looks like. Because we could explain to you what a loan looks like and how the moment we're done with the loan and we sign loan docs, we're out. Well, we're not. We really want to understand the full cycle because the more we understand, it's easier for us to sell. I'll give you guys a brief
Well,
example.
yes, but
Mhm.
speaking of the questions, what I was sitting here thinking the whole time was, don't they think like this already?
They should. A
Okay,
lot of them know.
okay.
They don't. In fact, I had a client not too long ago that she was trying to buy a house. Let's say same scenario, $100,000, but she was getting from another lender a loan at 65%, so $65,000. Let's say. Well, I came in and I said, hey, what if I give you $80,000? It was a little bit higher rate because I was giving her I had more exposure on the loan. I was giving her 80 versus 65. She's like, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, wait a second. I'm going to send you an email with an investment analysis, and you will see what your cash-on-cash return is, what your project return is, and what your total internal rate of return is. And the moment she got that email and she looked at it, because I wasn't going to explain it over the phone, it seemed like she wasn't going to get that. She looked at it and she's like, okay, perfect, let's do it. Because the more money, the more leverage you get sometimes is better. Now, high leverage is not the best solution all the time. What I mean by that is, me giving you more of a loan out of your purchase price is not a recipe for success. In fact, sometimes it's a recipe for disaster. Because you have less commitment to me making mortgage payments, you have less skin in the game in the project, is more likely for you to default and walk away from the project. So, but that's where we have to find that break-even point where it's fair enough for you to get in with very little capital, but it's also fair enough with me to minimize my risk. So that break-even point lands at around 80% of the purchase price. You have enough skin in the game, and you're going to be able to carry the whole project.
Luis is a former banker. Yeah, worked for a very large bank. He's also a developer. He also could wear a contractor's hat, and he also could do construction. Stephen's very similar. Stephen's got multiple projects going on right now, himself personally. He's a developer, he's a banker, and he also hangs drywall and will go dig up the shrubs if he has to. Having all sides like this is not the norm in this business. When you're talking to people, they're not going to sound, some will sound like Luis, or some will sound like Stephen, but the majority are people that started in the business either doing contracting themselves or construction themselves, or finding homes themselves, and then now want to learn how to leverage so that they can make more money doing what they were making money for somebody else doing. So if you can properly educate them, not overwhelm them, but point them in the right direction, then they will quickly look to you as the expert and then follow the solutions that you give them. Because you know more about the money side of it than you do about the contracting side and the construction side, which is where the majority of them are coming from.
Makes sense.
And that's what we're trying to do. With the tools and resources that we have, we're trying to make the developer understand how we look at an investment. In fact, a lot of brokers out there are afraid of even dealing with investors because they don't even understand the language. They don't understand the ratios. So what we're trying to say here is we created an app. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we created a mobile app so that any broker out there can go in there, plug in the numbers, send it to your investor, send it to us so that we can see we buy the property ourselves. So we created that with that same thing in mind so that once you understand the numbers behind it, then everything starts making sense and the logic into why we do business the way we do actually connects. So,
But I think I'm sorry, what was your name?
Greg.
Gregory. I'm listening to everything you're saying and documenting, and that's where the questions you're talking about. I was still trying to wrap my mind around, like Gregory was saying, my sales approach. Because I know I'm not going to get into this on every single phone call. Do I want the background information to
Probably
become
not.
a better salesperson? Absolutely. But I'm
Well,
saying,
probably not at the beginning.
exactly. It's a building process.
Yeah.
Because when I started in probate, I didn't even know what probate was.
Mhm.
Okay? And I literally, like Mike said, I built my sales skill one objection at a time. I placed them on hold and like rack my brain or go to my boss if he was available,
Yeah.
and that's how I built it. And then by the end of it, was able to speak very well on the the topic and why they should come to our training. So I'm still looking for like
Well,
my
because
unique.
what I'm giving you right now is I'm
Okay.
giving you the meat. I didn't
Okay.
start with the salad. I start with the meat
Okay.
because I want to give you everything, flood you guys with information, because I'm not gonna give you the way you sell. You individually have your own skills. I'm giving you enough resources so you can grab from multiple aspects and ultimately sell it the way you have to sell it. I'm not necessarily a salesperson. I am more in the back end trying to work the
The
business.
numbers.
Now, you guys want to understand the best ways to sell it, talk to Greg. He'll definitely tell you the best way to sell it, right? But I'll just give you the way the business works, so you can use that to your advantage. Yeah?
We get on the phone and start explaining everything he said. It was like,
Oh, they'll hang up.
that was great. Okay, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'll overwhelm them.
Like, did I just talk to some banker?
Yeah.
I thought I was talking to a hard
I
money
was
guy.
on the phone with some genius that told me everything. I don't know.
You don't need to do that, right?
But the depth of understanding becomes important when you get to the larger clients.
Right.
Sure.
For instance, Steve will come up on the phone, like we were sitting in the office and the gentleman called him and was like, Steve, you applied for a loan online and I want to know if you're still going to do it. Steve was like, who is this?
Right.
To start with, well, this is such and such from such and such. So you going to do it, bro? I mean, that was 2 seconds into the call. And Steve kind of sat back in his seat and started chuckling because it was an interesting conversation. He goes, no, I'm going to look at that one again. So, well, tell me, bro, you going to do it? I mean, it was like, and this
like
is
boiler room.
this is a competitive,
Slam this guy. Yeah.
And then, I said, I'll give you a call back. You have my number? I mean, and then that was the end of that telephone call.
Even if I would have worked with that guy, I wasn't going to work with that guy. Because I knew he did not know anything about what he was selling. Okay? You don't call any investor saying, are you going to do it?
Right.
You have to call the investor in a respectful way. You're calling a professional with a professional transaction. You're not going to call and I can't even think of the word for it. Because it was like, I'm at a used car lot or something.
You know what I have a habit of doing to put you up? I have a habit of always asking on every single call, did I catch you at a bad time?
And
That's the first thing I say. Hey, Louise, how you
I
doing?
love
This
when
is
people do
Mike.
that.
Did I catch you at a bad time?
That actually
Then I
comes
just
from the
wait.
IBM school of training. Have I caught you at a good time? Have I caught you at a bad time? Because a professional will, because they work on timelines, if you really want their undivided attention, you got to ask them to give you their undivided attention. And that's a segue of saying, instead of saying, hey bro, is this what you doing? Asking it that way is saying, is this a good time for us to have dialogue? Because what I have to say is very important, and I want to make sure you're paying attention. If not, that's okay. When is a good time that I can give you a call? Later this afternoon, 2 or 4 better? I just need a few minutes of your time. All those things tie into your professionalism and delivery on how Steve is going to respond to you or how Louise is going to respond to you. And then how much you're going to open up when you ask.
And you know what? He may have had the worst product in the world, but if he would have
You're saying
approached
something
Steve
else?
correctly, he would have piqued his interest. It's all about how you approach the situation. He could have the worst rates, the worst this, that, and the third. We got some interviews on this. Yeah.
And continue. Most of our competitors have worse products than what we have.
And they're right in business.
And
Every
that's
day.
it. That's
Every day.
Most people go to 65% loan to value. 65% of purchase price. That's the amount that they'll loan against the amount of the purchases. We talk in acronyms in this industry. We talk in by percentages. So that's going to be one of the first things you want to get your head around. You don't have to know percentages, but we speak that way. And we speak in terms of LTV, loan to value, ARV, loan LTV. It should be.
Is it in my packet?
It should be.
Okay.
LTV, loan to value, ARV, after repair value,
Nasty.
purchase price, how much a home costs, how much the project costs, and then last page, LTC, loan to cost,
Oh, yeah, I need the glossary.
and there's a few others, and disposition, how you plan on getting rid of the project. That's going to be continuous all the time we talk to people.
Okay.
Knowing those acronyms, say I am in business, I understand your business, and by speaking and putting them in the right places, so let people know the level of
So
professionalism.
LTC is loan to cost.
Loan to cost.
What's LTV?
Loan to purchase.
after repair value, LTV, loan to value.
So loan to value, sometimes people may refer to as the same as the LTP,
Correct.
loan to purchase. Because when you're talking to a borrower, they want to know how much money you're going to give them based on your purchase price. So they may say, what's the maximum loan to value you can go up to? Well, 80% of your purchase price. What's the LTP? Well, loan to purchase, 80%. Same thing. When they talk about ARV, sometimes they're talking about the same as ARMV, after repair market value. That's the same thing.
That's which one?
ARV and ARMV.
AR.
V is in Victor. ARMV.
Mary Victor?
Yeah, Mary Victor. After repair market value. The same thing. And what that means is the after repair market value, well, is once you fix the property, what are you going to sell it for?
So this product basically is property driven, not necessarily.
We're an asset-based lender, an ABL. That's another term that you'll hear, or use, ABL, asset-based lender, ABL. What that tells a person in the private money world is, you might be jacked up. I know that's not a real technical term.
But we all understand it.
Yeah.
But the property fits our guidelines.
Okay.
So we're qualifying from the property to the borrower, not the borrower to the property. When you go buy a house and they ask you for all that information about you, they're qualifying you
Right.
first. Do we believe you have the ability to repay, the ability to pay, and will continue to pay for the next 30 years of your life? Through the thick and thin, through the hard times, through the bad times, will you still make this mortgage payment? We're saying is the property of value, because whether you pay or not, we're just going to take the property back. And that's how we're going to make sure we assure the value of our investment and making sure that we get our return. Very different than how we're taught in the mortgage world.
And we'll go over, in fact, as we go through this, we will stop and break those acronyms so that we can really expand on them. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I think, yes, I do go more into details and try to give you guys the overview viewing, probably 30 seconds or whatever time it takes. But what we want to do here is we will also give you some of the bullets of what makes us different and what separates us from the competitors. And there are many things, in fact, that I was talking to earlier, but let me just finish my point that I was trying to make into how these transactions work. So, understanding the A to B and B to C, and the reason they call it A to B is pretty simple. Well, A to B, that's your purchase price. When you start the transaction, and it's a two-step transaction, then once you, A is you with the intention of buying it, B, you actually closed on it, now you have ownership of the asset, and C is you disposing the asset. So you have your A to B, and then over here, B to C, well, you have ownership of the asset, now you're disposing the asset, right? So that's the A to B, B to C terms. So when I was talking about the borrower and the four things that a borrower needs to have in order to, the four things that a borrower looks, the reasons why the borrower looks for us. Number one, we said credit, income, property, and lastly, time. Closing in time, closing fast is one of the biggest reasons why people use this. As we go through this and you guys do some business, you guys will see we have some clients that have a 760 FICO score. We have right now 780 FICO score, another client that just came in late last week. 780 FICO score, he's got plenty of money in the bank. But why does he need us? He has income, he has assets, he has credit, time, and the properties. Remember, these properties are so beat up. Standard lenders, traditional conventional lenders will not do the loan on these properties. Okay?
Why do you think, because this needs to stay, time needs to stay, why do you think time would be an important factor for someone in our niche of real estate?
I think it's huge. I think that if we're going to try to close in the Honda Center,